Welcome back. In this tutorial we will see how to create your After Effects Roto Mask. So let's start getting open After Effects. And after importing and creating the comp where we're going to be working to, the next step is to start prepping to create your Roto Mask. First, we want to create a solid where we will be doing all the Roto Masks. This is a method that by experience I prefer, since this is going to be allowing us to modify the footage without affecting your Roto Mask. So with that being said, let's left click on our timeline. Let's go into Panel, New, and Solid. This will bring the solid settings window where you can choose different color and properties for your solid. In this case, I will click on the color box and I will select a brighten red color. I will explain further on the tutorial why I choose this color. Meanwhile, after selecting the color, I will click OK and then OK again in the solid settings. Now I have two layers, the red solid layer and then the footage. I'm going to turn off the red solid layer so I can see the footage underneath. Scrolling forward and backward, I will analyze what the fingers and hand are doing and what is the position that they hold for the longer time. After analyzing it, I will stop where I think the subject is holding the longer pose, and I will go ahead and click on the pen tool, or also you can access it with just pressing the G on your keyboard. This is a shortcut for it. Note, make sure that before you start creating your points, you have selected the solid layer. Even though it's not visible at the moment, it will still be affected by what we do with the pen tool. So it's going to start creating our layers, your mask inside of the solid. When you start creating your mask, make sure that you keep your points to the minimum number, because this will allow you more control and easy detection of errors when you're animating your Roto Mask. Don't try to keep everything in one mask, since some of the elements are going to be moving independently and in variable speeds. If by any chance you draw several points and realize that you will not use them, just select the point that you want to get rid of it and click delete on your keyboard. To close the Roto Mask, just click on the first point that you create and After Effects will close it for you. You can always, after you finish your Roto Mask, you can always go back and re-edit the mask point and positions if it's needed. Modify the handles by just left click and drag to adjust as you prefer or need it. The point handles are linked from one side to the other. If you need to break this connection, you can do it by holding down the Control key plus left click and then drag it. This will allow you to just break that connection and manipulate it individually. I will speed up this part and it's just me doing the rest of the roto for the hand fingers and the whole forearm too. So when we come back for the speed up, I will show you a couple more properties that you can use to your advantage inside of the mask options.
You can also change the color of your mask. This is for identifying it better when you have several masks, so you don't have masks that are similar color and then you don't know what exactly they are doing. So in order to do this, you can go here next to the mask name. It's a square there. They have, in this case, it has a yellow color. If you click on it, it will bring us a dialog that has different, it have a color settings palette. So you can actually go and select any color that you want to assign to this one. The other thing that you need to consider is when you're creating keyframes. The keyframes, just by clicking on the stopwatch on the property where it says mask path, that will start creating keyframes automatically as you move your mouse. You can also rename your layers by just right clicking on the layer name and then go into the rename. Type the name that you want to get on the layer and just click enter. After creating the animation in each layer, now we can go and use this solid that we have done all the roto as a mat for our footage so we can cut it out. So I'm gonna duplicate the footage with Ctrl plus D. I'm gonna block the original footage so we don't actually modify anything on it. I'm gonna see the layer, the red solid now. So if we scroll down, you can see how is the movement going on there. You can toggle on and off the visibility of the mask on this icon. The next thing that we want to use is using this solid in order to check that our mask is covering what it's supposed to cover. So I'm going to turn the visibility down to probably between, you can do 25 or 50, any of those numbers can be good. And checking in here, we can see how in the bracelet we still have like areas where it's not covered by the roto. So that's why it's good to check it with this kind of technique. That's why I choose a color that was kind of visible, in this case the red. You can also use blue, green, depending on your background. I always go to prefer and use the red because it gives you more detail on how is everything working. If you notice that your mask is not completely covering something, you can go and modify it. After we do all the checking and everything, now we can actually go and access our alpha. If we go and just solo out probably our layer and click Alt plus 4 in order to access our alpha channel, we can see how the mask is moving and how it's acting on. So we can turn on the visibility for the mask. And the other thing is, notice how my mask is actually overlaying. You want to have overlays between the masks so you don't actually create holes in case that, like for example here, we're showing about how is a hole created. So that's why the overlay is important. If we go into the original footage, we can see how it looks on the whole hole there. So after we check everything and make sure that we have the overlays going on, we can go into our solid where the masks are located. We can select all the masks by Control and click on the first one, and that's just going to click on the last one. So it's going to select all the layers. Here we can check that we have several options. Like for example, we have the mask feather. If we increase the number of it, you can see how the edge starts getting a little bit more smoother. You can change the number of the feather as you need it. It can be like 3, 4, 7, 20, depending on what you need for the mask. This is going to create a soft blend. It's not going to make it sharp. You go into 0 and then see how sharp it is, and then just put a little bit of feather. That will help to just blend in a little bit more. We have expansion and we have also opacity. So this is what it says pretty much. If you increase the expansion, it's gonna pretty much start taking from the outer ring of the mask, like as you see in this example. If you take the tension down, it's gonna start eating into the mask. So the other option that we have is the opacity. This is in case that you don't want the mask to be too extreme and you want to still keep a little opacity on it. So this is another option that you can probably be using for different things. We also have our different modes here. We have none, that's pretty much we're gonna see the solid as it is. Then we have the subtraction mode. It's pretty much gonna subtract everything that is outside of the mask. And the way that it was before, it was the add mode. So this one is going to create an invert alpha pretty much. So you can play around with any of these modes according to what you need and explore them. The most useful that I have used in these options is the add and the subtract. So pretty much those ones are the ones that I use the most, not the intersection of the other ones, but you can probably use them in different exercises or situations. After checking our maps and doing all the adjustments that we need to do, now we can use our solid as a matte. If we go into the options of the track matte and select alpha matte for the red solid, this is going to tell After Effects that we want to use the layer that's on top, that's called in this case red solid, to use it as a matte to cut our footage here. So after you do that, you can see how our footage now is being cut according to the shape that is on the red solid. Also, notice that we can have some mistakes here going on. There's some jigger going on too, so you can also fix those ones after. So it's no limitation. If you want to go back and retweak all your roto, you can do that too. Okay, and that will be it for this tutorial on how to create roto basics.